Hans Holbein the Younger, the chisel-precise eye of the Northern Renaissance, who cut through surface and disguise to reveal the character beneath. Born in Basel, trained in Germany, and adopted by the English court, Holbein became the portraitist of power and of private life, from luminous studies of Erasmus to the theatrical pageantry of Henry VIII. His work is discipline and intelligence, scientific detail in the clothing, forensic attention to hands and objects, and an almost modern sense of presence that can make a sitter whisper across 5 centuries. You will see masterworks where a broken lute becomes political commentary, where a globe and instruments stage a rivalry of faith and knowledge, and where a skull lies bent on a tabletop, insisting that even the powerful answer to mortality. We'll meet merchants, humanists, queens, and ordinary women immortalized with astonishing clarity. And we'll unpack the techniques, miniature drawings, full-length cartoons, and workshop replicas that spread his influence across Europe. This is Holbein, exacting, curious, and endlessly revealing. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe. Your support helps us keep creating more educational videos like this one. Holbein's story begins in the prosperous, bookish city of Basel. There, he painted scholars and lawyers, gaining a reputation for portraits that combined sober German precision with an Italian sense of composition. Early Basel commissions included intimate likenesses and roundels that circulated among humanists. His portraits of Erasmus became prototypes of the learned man, pens, books, and fur collars rendered with minute fidelity. Look at the series of Erasmus portraits. Sitting, writing, thinking, where every stroke seems calibrated to intellectual temperament. Those Basel years also produced lively municipal portraits and altarpiece work that taught him to place figures in convincing space and to hold multiple characters together with psychological clarity. Holbein moved to England and found a different world, a court hungry for images that broadcast power and diplomacy. He quickly adapted, producing portraits that served both as personal likeness and political instrument. The king's circle needed images for alliances, gifts, and propaganda. Holbein supplied both flattering icon and arresting reality. His studies for the Whitehall mural and the many portraits of Henry VIII show his ability to shift register, from monumental, even iconic representations of the sovereign to small, intimate likenesses for courtiers. He painted Jane Seymour in a sober, devotional manner. He prepared drawings and cartoons that later became royal emblems, and he made full-length, ceremonial compositions that entered Tudor visual language. No single painting captures Holbein's mind like The Ambassadors. This double portrait places 2 men, an urbane French envoy and a contemplative bishop, amid shelves of instruments and books. The painting is a cabinet of knowledge: globes, quadrants, a torquetum, music, and mathematics. Each object is painted with topographical exactness and carries a meaning: sacred and secular learning in tension, political reach, and religious fracture. The work's famous anamorphic skull, visible only from the side, is a bold reminder that despite wealth and learning, mortality looms. Look closely at the broken lute string on the lower shelf and the open Lutheran hymn book, little visual clues that suggest discord. Holbein composes a puzzle of power, faith, and fragility, a Renaissance manifesto in oil. Holbein's portraits of Henry VIII became the king's public face. Working sometimes from sketches, sometimes from the studio pattern, Holbein produced the stance and costume that would define Tudor kingship. Wide stance, jeweled doublet, hands on hips, and immovable presence built for propaganda. These aren't merely flattering pictures, they are constructed symbols. Holbein's workshop also produced copies and variants used as diplomatic gifts, which helped codify the king's image across Europe. Beyond Henry, Holbein painted queens and courtiers, Anne of Cleves, Jane Seymour, and others, enough that his visual vocabulary shaped how Tudor England saw itself. Holbein was as much a draftsman as a painter. His chalk and ink drawings are studies of character, spare, exact, often surprising. The Windsor drawing associated with Anne Boleyn shows a face captured in a few decisive lines. His design for Apollo and the Muses reveals his flair for public spectacle and pageantry. Holbein's technique combined layered underdrawing, subtle temper-like modeling in oil, and an obsession with detail: the stitching of a glove, the glint on a jewel, the pattern of a fabric. That precision allowed him to translate small studies into life-size portraits and to supervise a workshop that could reproduce his patterns without losing their vitality. Holbein was also the portraitist of commerce. Pictures like the merchant Georg Gysse show a world of ledgers, glassware, and exotic goods. In these merchant portraits, every object is evidence: a ring, a glass vase, a flower, a Latin inscription that announces age and date. Holbein's still life details are not mere decoration. They tell us about identity, profession, and social status. His portraits of Hanseatic merchants reveal a network of international trade and trust. These were images that travelers and partners could carry, confirming credit and character across borders. Holbein's portraits of women are quieter, but no less telling. From the enigmatic sitter labeled Anne Boleyn in Windsor drawings to the lady with a squirrel, Holbein renders feminine identity through costume, jewelry, and the faintest shifts of expression. Women in his portraits wear coifs, gable hoods, and blackwork embroidery, and their hands or accessories often hold genealogical or marital signals. These are private faces made public: brides and wives, noblewomen and servants' spouses, captured with sympathy and the same forensic detail he brought to princes. Holbein's workshop was productive and influential. Many surviving works are studio versions or later copies, made to meet demand for Tudor portraits as gifts and tokens. The line between Holbein's own hand and that of his pupils can be subtle. Compositional planning, small preparatory cartoons, and standardized patterns allowed his style to travel. After his death, prints and painted copies kept his portrait types in circulation. Artists and courts across Europe learned from his realism and psychological directness. Holbein's approach anticipates later Northern portrait traditions and even modern photographic sensibilities. Holbein's genius is his insistence on truth without cruelty. He balanced courtly need with human insight. He painted emperors of learning and merchants of trade, queens and quiet sitters, theatrical state portraits, and intimate drawings. Each image is a study in observation, social code, and subtle commentary. When you stand before a Holbein, you are in the presence of an interrogator who loves detail, who believes that jewels, gloves, and books speak as loudly as faces. His work still teaches us how sight can be methodical, how portraiture can be evidence, and how a painted likeness can tell history. If you look again at Erasmus's pen, the ambassador's broken lute, or Henry's staged stance, you'll see Holbein's atlas of human life: precise, moral, and endlessly readable.